I was recently talking about open-air preaching and somebody responded, "Do you have to bother people with that stuff? Can't you just stick inside your churches?" This man, not a Christian, perfectly expresses the spirit of the age. We are happy for people to have their own private beliefs. And we are content that folks practice their personal piety behind closed doors. At the same time, we fiercely protect public space as a neutral zone, which is supposedly free from all particular truth claims. I mean, we're happy for advertisers to sell us things when we walk out the door. Commerce is allowed in public, and no one needs to argue for that. But virtually everything else must meekly seek permission to be allowed into public space. If the marketers preach their consumerist gospel, no one will mind. But preaching the Christian gospel in public space, oh my goodness, that will attract much opposition. Very soon we will be told to stick inside the churches. Well, Jesus did not think this way. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 26, he says, "There is nothing concealed that will not be disclosed, or hidden that will not be made known. What I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is whispered in your ear, proclaim from the roofs." Shout it from the rooftops in the old translations. What could be more private than your house? And yet Jesus says, don't close the door and shut in the truth. Climb onto your house and publish the truth. Your roof is not a prison to confine your beliefs, it is a platform to confess them. Even your abode is not private. It's a pulpit. We do not have a privatized faith, but a proclaimed faith, something to be shouted from the rooftops. I mean, how could it be any other way? As they say, good news is for sharing. And that's not just something for us to live by. God's own truth is always seeking an audience. From the beginning, God has had a word. He has always had an outgoing expression, and he has not kept his word to himself. He's created a whole cosmos to be the hearer of his word. As Colossians chapter 1 verse 23 says, every creature under heaven and earth is hearing the gospel. See, God is preaching the gospel from his home in heaven. The skies are proclaiming the work of his hands, as Psalm 19 says. God is shouting it from the rooftops. How can we feel any different? The truth will out. In every sense, that is true. The truth will out. If we don't feel something of the outgoing impulse of the gospel, we haven't yet heard it as we should. We have a faith that is to be shouted from the rooftops. Let me leave the final word to George MacLeod. When he thought about the lengths to which Christ the Word has gone to meet us in our darkness, he could not help but recommend an outgoing public proclamation of Jesus Christ. He writes this, "I simply argue that the cross be raised again at the center of the marketplace as well as on the steeple of the church. I am recovering the claim that Jesus was not crucified in a cathedral between two candles, but on a cross between two thieves, on the town garbage heap, at a crossroads so cosmopolitan that they had to write his title in Hebrew and Latin and Greek, at the kind of place where cynics talk smut and thieves curse and soldiers gamble, because that is where he died, and that is what he died about. And that is where churchmen ought to be and what churchmen ought to be about." When you know this gospel, how can you not shout it from the rooftops?